Well, I haven't seen this thing for a while, and it's actually been 2 months now since I looked at this thing. I have no idea where that time's gone. So I did already start to record the part 2 for this. As you can see, basically this is mostly stripped down now, and there's a mess of parts here, although not all of this is from this tower case, because there's been other things going on in here as well. But I did actually record more footage for this, pretty much about the same time as I did part 1. I just haven't really got around to sorting it out. And a couple of weeks ago I did actually start to have a go at finishing this off. Unfortunately, it seems I didn't press the record button on the camera, so what I was trying to do didn't get recorded. So I'll jump to what I've already got recorded, and then we'll come back to this point here. So I've stripped out the rest of the wires and a few other bits out of the case, the fans as well. The fans have basically been thrown away because they were no good. Just need to get this redundant PSU out because it's really filthy inside, full of this black dust, so I think I'm going to have to probably strip that right down, or at least just give it a blast so I don't get all this muck everywhere. I've had a go at cleaning up these front panels. This one's actually come up really nice. It's got a couple of scuff marks which aren't really going to show on the camera. It certainly looks better than this one. You can see the difference in muck there, so that's probably going to come up quite nice. I'm going to have to take the front fascia off and probably do the same with that. Pretty much just pull it apart and clean it up bit by bit, I think. I've also given these side panels, or one of the side panels, a good clean as well. I've got to do the other one yet. A lot of muck in these grooves here, but you can see compared to this one it's miles better. I laid all these parts out outside just to dust them down with the compressor. Water for cleaning this system was absolutely filthy. And then there's this bucket of the bits here that I've pulled out, which is surprisingly heavy. So I'll just get those out on the bench and we'll have a quick look. And we've got some of the bits that I've pulled out. This is a SCSI card. That's could probably do with a bit better clean up. I've just given things a quick clean, just so it's not shedding all this black dust everywhere. I don't know if these are have any real use anymore or not, but probably not something I'll use. Motherboard's cleaned up okay. Heatsink probably could do with removing and actually washing, but yeah, be interesting to try and fire this up and see if it works. I think this is actually a socket 7 system, so it's probably got an Athlon on it or something like that maybe. Is that a socket 7? I still don't know what I'm talking about. I've got all the ribbon cables here as well that I've pulled out. The SCSI cable's a bit worse for wear, not that easy to clean either. And floppy drive and hard drive cables. I found a nail brush is a really good way to clean out the muck from these, because you can get in between the gaps and then just wipe it with a wet or damp cloth to get up the muck. So they've come up reasonably well for a quick wash. And then there's this ridiculously long 50-pin SCSI cable. I mean, that's got to be getting on for a metre long. It's even still got the price tag on it, $9.99. So got a few other bits here. Fan grill, say the fan went in the dustbin. Network card, I'm not particularly interested in that. IO shield, that's from the SCSI tray. These look a bit better. I've not opened this up. This is probably quite dirty inside, and the same with the tape drive. I'm not sure I'll be using these. I've got so many of these, it's ridiculous. Need to look at starting to get rid of some of them. And then there's also the floppy drive. That's, again, I've blasted inside a bit, but it'll probably need taking apart and cleaning properly. And I've just been and fetched one of the floppy drives which I had bought, because I know they're convertible to be used with an Amiga, and it looks like it's the correct model. So yeah, so I've got another one of those potentially, so it's definitely going to be worth giving that a good clean up. That's just a serial port bracket, I've got plenty of those. And then finally we've got the hot swap SCSI drive rack. which is some interest to me. I did notice down in here there's like almost like a PCI slot, and it looks like there's some sort of a board located up inside this, which is quite interesting. I'd like to know what that's all about, what that's for. So I'm definitely going to take this off and have a quick look at that. The reason I'm interested in this rack is because I've already got one. Somebody actually gave me one of these without all these hot swap caddies. They'd found one of these without their backplane and everything. So I managed to get some of these caddies quite cheap, something like about £3 each. Some people are selling these for about 20 quid each, which is absolutely crazy. There you go. So yeah, on this one you can see there's like a slot here, and that seems to be where this PCB is mounted, so I don't know what that's for. What I'd like to do with these is convert them to either SAS or SATA, and then actually try and make use of them. This is just going to be the fan housing, and you can still see here it's quite dirty. I've not been able to get in and clean that, so it's something that will need cleaning now as well. And I think these either just come off or they're keyed in some way. That just comes off. Yeah, so I don't know what all of this is about. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure. This is obviously not a passive system. It obviously isn't passively connected. It doesn't look to be. I don't really know too much about SCSI. I know that the bus for the SCSI drives works in parallel, and I know that you have different IDs for each device, but yeah, I don't know what the purpose of that board would be, if it would work without that board. No idea. There's an Adaptec chip on there. Might be able to look up the part number and find out, just out of curiosity. But yeah, that's another bay that I can hopefully make use of there. Just need to give that a bit better clean, I think. And then these caddies are not specifically for any particular type of drive. They're just a frame, basically. Considering these are 20 years old, they would have probably been quite expensive at the time. Yeah. So it's just your drive. It's an interesting design of casing. It's got like a lip all the way around it. I don't think I've ever seen a drive like that before. But that's the caddy, so you can just mount whatever you want on there, and obviously the back of the drive provides the interface into the back plane, which in this case is the SCSI connectors. So going back to these power supplies for a moment, you can see here we've got a couple of screws which lock the power supplies into the bay, the sort of the redundant bay. Looks like they've only got one screw in each, for whatever reason. That's trying to roll away as I push on it. So then this should pull out, and this has actually got like a metal plate on the back of. There we go. So that's your hot swap. Oh my god, look at the state of that. Yeah, it definitely needs cleaning, and then you can see in there, hopefully, that's part of the dock, and that will regulate the power between the two supplies. I think it can be configured to work in a couple of different ways, so you've either got redundancy or I think they can be ran together to increase the capacity. I've actually got some instructions for these with the new set, so that would be worth a look. But as you can see, it's pretty much a fairly standard power supply. It's even got sort of the positions for the cables to come out. It's just got these extra bits on the back, these sort of bladed PCBs to dock in there into those connectors to make it hot swappable. But I think it would probably be convertible. I'm not sure I would use these because they're really old and they've probably had a hammer in, but the other ones that are new, they could actually be useful. And in terms of sort of the form factor, this bracket really is just, let me just put the camera down. So I've just undone the screws on that, and you see these are basically standard PSU mounting positions. So what this really is just a plate with a handle on to make it sort of a hot swappable system. That I think will be just a standard PSU mounting screw positions. It's quite clever really. So yeah, that's all. That's going to need a bit more cleaning up, and I'll start cleaning the case as well a bit better and get this front plastic panel off as well, clean that up, and I'll probably need that out of the way for the time being. Another thing I've noticed with this case, it's got bolts on the corners, it's not riveted together. Over here, there's some screws there, and it's symmetrical, and I'm wondering if it's actually been built so that you can rotate the back panel around and have the PSUs at the top instead, because even the case, it's got holes. So there's a hole down here for this metal frame to mount to, but then there's another one an equal distance from the other side, as if this could be mounted either way around. Same here, these lugs are the same on both sides. So I do wonder if it's designed to be built up in different ways. Not quite sure how that would work with the front panel, but yeah, interesting. I then dusted down some parts of the power supplies, and you can probably see the dust that was coming out of these. I wasn't going to film it, but after doing the first one I thought I've got to do the second one. And it was just like starting up a knackered diesel car. It was just the amount of black crap that was coming out of it, and it was all sort of like almost chunks of dirt. I'll leave some of the footage going with the compressor. It's just the amount that came out of it was unbelievable. I also looked up the Adaptec card that was in that caddy, that extra PCB that was plugged into like a PCI slot. I couldn't find much information about the chip itself. The part number on the chip just kept bringing up websites of component companies trying to sort of sell you quotes for large quantities of the chip, but not actually tell you what it was. But the card itself, the number on that, seems to equate to what was classed as an Intel server board SCSI RAID controller. So maybe that board gives some kind of additional RAID functionality to the drives without an actual RAID card. I'm not really sure, and I'm not sure how that RAID functionality would be accessed through a SCSI connector rather than something connected to the motherboard itself. So I don't really know, still really not any of the wiser as to how that would work. Bit of a strange one, that. So this is all the cleaned up PSUs. They're still a bit dirty really. I think if they're going to be used they'd probably want a better clean, probably get a brush in there on them. I don't know what's going to happen with these, so I'll try and get them reassembled and put back together. I've also managed to find this box here. This is basically another one of those redundant PSUs with the two, might be able to see the two power supplies in the back with the pull handles on them and all the cabling. These are brand new, never been used. I think I paid 15 quid for these. Didn't really want them, but seemed silly not to. I've got all the instructions for these. There's different versions of it by the looks of things. One of the reasons that bay was put in here is because this is a three bay slot, whereas these are twos. To be honest, I don't like these. I've seen this on cases before where they have these plastic bits bridging the gaps. I'm inclined to just cut them out, to be honest, but I'll leave them for now because there's no, I don't know what I'm going to do with it in the future, so there's no point in taking them out unnecessarily. But we'll get this off. Looks like there's 6 screws on this. I probably can't see that in a minute. Yeah, there's sort of one at the top, middle and, well, the top, middle and bottom. Okay, so front panel's now off. My hands are black again already, so it just goes to show how much muck this thing's still got on it. I've got some strange sort of brackety bits around here. And I suppose, I mean, it doesn't really mount the power button in it or anything. So it's weird. Looks like you could open that up to take bigger drives. It's an interesting case, and then just a bit at the bottom here as well. I guess that perhaps adds strength. So the front, what would be the front, seems to consist mostly of these side pieces. So yeah, I'm not sure that this would be as reversible as I was sort of suggesting, but in terms of if you could reconfigure it, yeah, maybe. So I'll give that a clean up, and these metal bits need a good scrub up, so I can take that downstairs now. One positive thing now is this is actually possible to lift without giving yourself a hernia, which is a bonus. So I just don't know what dust this has been subject to, but I assume this obviously is the same stuff that's come out of the power supply. It's really annoying actually talking at the minute because, well, my voice is probably annoying anyway, but there's like a ringing now coming from the metal casing whenever I speak. This is the inside of the fascia, and it's weird, it's got these like little bits that seem to sort of lock together. So again, I don't know if there are different options, and you can, perhaps there are different configurations for the front, and they just slot it together based on what they're building. It's very, very strange. I've never seen a case like this. So these pieces are clearly, unless they've done it for some reason to do with the mould, I don't know. All the LEDs, 1,000,001 LEDs, these wires are filthy as well. Key lock, which I don't think I have a key for. And just your standard momentary push type switches that you get in PCs really. This black coating, I don't know if it's got some kind of metallic RF shielding properties to it, but I've seen it on old cases before. It's weird, it's got like a rough matte texture to it. That's all I can think, is it's perhaps some kind of metallic RF shielding in it, but I don't know. Anyway, I shall have to give this a clean up in the sink, and then we'll see about getting it all back together again, hopefully. Well, as I'm going to have to wash this to some degree, I've tried to pull it apart a fair bit, so I've got all the lights out. They've got their own sort of separate panel, which looks like it's made of two pieces itself that was screwed on. So that should be a little bit more easy to clean. I'm not going to pull all of them out, it's going to be a nightmare. I've managed to get the switches out of here. I was a bit wary because these plastics might have been brittle, but they seem okay. So they're out, and then the buttons that were on the front, they've just pulled away. This does come into sections. It looks like whatever this spray stuff is that they put on is all done once it's assembled, because you can see where it's white, and even these screws, these big screws that were holding the sections together, I've got a coating on the top, but not the rest of the screw. So it's very, very strange. The doors where these springs are, I was wondering how these worked, and there's like a little piece of plastic here, like a retainer that goes in. So I've been able to get one of those out, but I've not been able to get the spring out very easily. But I should probably just leave that. It's going to be easy enough to wash it and then dry that enough for it to be alright. And the hinges for the doors, they also can be released. There's quite a lot of parts to this really. Probably wouldn't be that cheap to manufacture it with all the twiddly bits that it's got on it. But interesting, again, it makes me question why build it like this with this sort of modular fashion. Are there alternate layouts and builds for this case using these particular parts and moulds at the different configurations? Very interesting. Even the power button's got its own little plastic thing to mount on. It does make me wonder if this was actually designed so you could perhaps have one of the older style AT on and off switches rather than these ATX which use a standby voltage. I've got all the blanking plates and that, some of the wires. I think I've actually left some of the wires downstairs for the buttons. I've removed all these springs and bits, some screws in here. The buttons are all out as well. The power button was a bit weird because the way they'd secured the actual switch in there was, I've not got one of the switches here, but there's usually 6 legs on the back, and what they've done is splayed the legs over the plastic to stop the button falling forwards, and it was just pushed in from this side with this little button in there. So yeah, bit of a interesting way of preventing the button from falling out. And I've got the fascia sections. This is I think this was the top, not the bottom. It's like a top plate. It's a real big chunk, that is. I don't know if it's two or three pieces that have been plastic welded in some way. I'm not entirely sure. It's a bit strange. And we've got a side panel. There's the doors there, they're both cleaned up now as well. And then the main panel here. I've not attempted to get any of the marker pen off, and the same with that at this point in time. I perhaps should, in case these get in the sun and it sort of leaves the plastic to yellow differently if it does yellow. I may already have done that though if that's the case. I've removed all the springy bits off of here, mainly so I didn't slice my fingers open while I was cleaning it. And you can see where the buttons would have gone at the top there. So yeah, these plastic strips that came across, I did catch one before I even got it downstairs to clean it, and it broke. So I just decided to pull these all off in the end after all. They're a nuisance. So I've done that, and then I've just lightly filed these just to remove any bits sticking out. So yeah, should be okay. So I shall try and get all this back together now, and we'll see what it looks like. Yeah, this mechanism here with these slotting together, it's very much like a jigsaw really. Another thing that's surprising about this is just how thick the plastic is on the casing. Modern cases are probably half the thickness of that. Very sturdy. Who knows how well this is going to come out, because I'm just doing it on my crappy Nokia phone. I've got a multimeter here on continuity mode, as you can see, with a beep up. And I thought I'd test this. So I was right, this paint is actually conductive. So it's a sort of a way of getting extra shielding from interference by the looks of it. So at the start of this video I think I mentioned it had been about 7 weeks since I did the part 1 video. It's now been another 3 weeks since I mentioned that it was 7 weeks ago. Hopefully I'll get this thing finished this year. So I've got the front panel fully back together. It's all clipped in, and there's some big screws that hold it. I think they're around, there you go, you can see those. They're a bit weird really because they're overlapped. It's a strange setup. I disassembled the LED panel. These are very much your sort of old school rectangular LEDs. I do quite like these sort of things you'd used to see in old 80s hi-fi systems, and that's a 2-part thing, so I should be able to clip that back together. I think that's just like a little retainer that's built in for the wires. So yeah, that just sort of clips together. I'll sort that out in a minute. There was some extra loose buttons and switches, so you reset and power switches, and I think this is the alarm switch because it's actually a latching one. I've got some more of these buttons, and the blue ones do seem to be latching. The wires come off on this, but it's not a problem. These are actually double pole, double throw, so you could always resolder these wires to the other side. And again, I've got loads of these spare, so it's not a problem. So I'll just get the front panel on and a few of the bits in place. I'm not actually going to put it all fully back together because I have decided finally, after chopping and changing, that I am going to use this for something, which will hopefully be in another video, which will hopefully not be 5 months from now. But I'll be using this just as the open chassis, pretty much as it is now, not with the front on and the side panels in all likelihood. So I'm not going to go to too much trouble getting everything back exactly how it should be. And to be honest, in terms of the future of this case, I've had a few ideas of what to use it for. Some of them are, you know, like you could build a mega gaming system in it or something with lots of ridiculous cooling and that, but I'm thinking more along the lines of a high capacity file server with a lot of hard drives in it. But that's going to probably require some fairly significant mods as well, so we'll see. And that's, again, I've already got too many things to do and not enough time or energy to do it, so highly unlikely that that's going to make an appearance anytime soon. But for the time being, this is going to make a good chassis for something else that I am currently working on, and that will tide me over for the time being. There's quite a few bits and pieces here. So we've got all the hinges and bits from the door. The little logo, the Saturn thing, did come off, but as you can perhaps see, half the text has disappeared, but never mind. The little springs I took off because these were sticking out, and as I was cleaning it I was very conscious of slicing myself open on them. I absolutely hate these kind of hinges, these plastic bendy things. I used to get these on calculator cases and things, and like lunch boxes always seem to have them on the clips. So I refuse to buy any box that has these crap plastic bendy things. You know, either give me a proper hinge or don't bother at all. So we'll get these bits in anyway and at least get a quick look at what it would look like, as it's a nice clean system. Okay, so that's the nicely cleaned up tail case. It does look quite a lot better actually. There are some scuffs on the plastic that obviously I can't do a great deal with. There's still pen on certain places. I've not attempted to get that off yet. I probably should really, so I may have a go at that. I have cheated a bit here, to be honest. The panels aren't screwed on properly. These buttons aren't even, I've not put the switches in. I've just screwed in the LEDs here for the indicators, and the key lock I've not put back, and the hinges. I don't really want to put the front panels on anyway. I don't think I should be putting them back on for any kind of future use. One thing I will say, these strips that I took out here, I had a feeling that it was a bad idea to do it, and I remember why now. There's two reasons. One is these blanking plates don't lock into particular positions, so it makes it a bit of a nuisance if you're mounting stuff, although they should theoretically just drop down and sit on the next drive, although they could rattle around a bit, I suppose, I don't know. The other thing is, and I had this in another case, they seem to provide a bit of tension that pulls the two sides together just that tiny bit, and these I've noticed are a little bit easier to knock out than they were before, so it may be wise not to take these out in a case that's got them, so that you don't have that problem. There was another case where I had the same thing, and the blanking plates just wouldn't stay in at all, but luckily I think because the plastic on this is so thick, these bits are still fairly rigid. And just for a view with the doors back on, I've got to hold these on because I've not put the hinges on, so yeah. I realised with the side panels, one of the things that's quite nice about them is they're both exactly the same, so you can put either one on either side, which is a nice touch. Obviously it's better for manufacturing as well because there's less differences. So yeah, I think that's probably about it. You can see here on this door, this edge is quite, you might be able to see this corner's fairly chewed up, so I don't know, but I think all things considered, how old this is, the muck that was in it, it's fared fairly well for its age. It's not really yellowed. It's quite a nice case, so hopefully I'll be able to do something a little bit more interesting and permanent with it. But as I say, For the time being, I am going to just use the chassis for something I've been working on. But more of that in another video. So considering that this is just a case with some old crap in it, I think I've spent far too much time on this little video already, so I think we'll call it a day there.